Yu-Gi-Oh! Is chock full of iconic cards. Dark Magician, Monster Reborn, and as far as trap cards go, I think Mirror Force takes the cake. From the earliest days of the game, from the playground to the premier event stage, a well-timed Mirror Force against a sufficiently overconfident opponent could change the tide of an entire battle in a way that is both fortuitous and flashy, wiping away all attack position monsters in a retaliatory maelstrom of retribution, punishing smug certainty with fathomless karmic justice. Hello everyone, GoldenNova here, and today's video topic was voted on by my patrons. Every month, they get a chance to determine what I talk about, and they've decided on a topic that's been a part of the game's history since the very beginning. Made famous by its many dual monsters appearances and legit tournament utility, this card's legacy is so cemented that it's, well, a legend card. At least so far as rush duels are concerned. But even in the core game, its reputation precedes itself, with it being one of the staple cards used by Vrain's antagonist turned rival, Revolver. Heck, he even made more support for that card specifically. Combine that with a series of elementally and thematically themed mirror forces, and you've got yourself a pretty healthy suite of cards that punish aggression. So while we're not talking about an archetype in the colloquial terms, there's no effect that searches you a mirror force card or anything, I still think this makes for an intriguing series to go over. And to make things a bit more interesting, I'll be ordering these next 11 cards in order from worst to best. So let's take some time to reflect on one of the game's most famous forces with Mirror Force Explained. Today's episode is possible thanks to viewers like you, as well as my patrons. If you like what I do here, I would super appreciate it if you'd subscribe to help us reach another wonderful milestone video. And if you want to support me directly while getting some awesome benefits, check out the link to my Patreon in the description below. So, what's the deal with Mirror Force? Well, I want to tell you, but base Mirror Force isn't number 11, so we can't talk about it yet. But you know what Mirror Force is, right? You've been able to glean some measure of its function from the preamble, right? You know, I don't write those things for my health. I'm laying the groundwork for a thorough dive into the subject at hand. It's important! Anyway, number 11 on this list is Dark Mirror Force, a normal trap card that, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, banish all defense position monsters your opponent controls. So yeah, this card, sucks. Yeah, it triggers on attack declaration, which is a classic Mirror Force trait, but then it hits everything that Mirror Force isn't supposed to be hitting. Defense position monsters? That doesn't stop attacks. Hardly matters that you're banishing instead of destroying. The whole point is to stop attacks, right? Well, to play devil's advocate here for a second, people would often play around Mirror Force back in the day by hiding their important monsters in defense position to avoid the effect of Mirror Force. So, if one were to activate Dark Mirror Force instead, well, that would be quite the turnabout now, wouldn't it? Even better if you combined it with base Mirror Force to make sure you still got those attacking monsters as well. Not that it really changes the standings, but still thought I should try to go to bat for it at least a little bit. I think I've built a brand around finding silver linings in cards, kinda like this. Mirror Force Dragon is number 10, a level 8 light dragon fusion monster with 2800 attack and 1200 defense, and must be special summoned by the effect of the Fang of Critias, using Mirror Force. When any number of monsters you control are targeted for an attack or by an opponent's card effect, except during the damage step, you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. Now, reading that sounds pretty crazy, right? We aren't just hitting your opponent's attack position monsters, we're taking away all of them, including their back row. And it doesn't even have to be on attacks either. If they try to get their grubby little mitts on your cards via an effect, then boom, there goes their stuff. And it's not once per turn, so they can't even bait it properly either. But the problem is that the card is almost impossible to use. Currently, the Legendary Knight support isn't really, let's say good. So you have to hard make this in a deck that presumably lacks so many good cards that you have room for regular ass Mirror Force. Sorry. And despite the potential for retaliation, it doesn't have any of its own protection, so the removal that hits it will more than likely just take it out, working doubly well if your opponent hasn't even set up a board yet for it to blast, because you can't really punish an empty field now, can you? But at least it works like a Mirror Force, unlike some cards I could mention. And the fact that it's a dragon, it's getting some brownie points from me. Honestly, I'm the one making the list. You're lucky that this isn't even higher up because of that. Radiant Mirror Force is a normal trap card, and when your opponent's monster declares an attack while they control 3 or more attack position monsters, destroy all attack position monsters your opponent controls. So, functionally, it's regular Mirror Force, but they added a bit of a stipulation that, what, makes it so you can't hit 2 or less? Sounds like a pretty meaningless change, right? I mean, if I'm using Mirror Force, I want to be taking down a lot of monsters, right? And sure, maximizing the effectiveness of your cards is a pretty important thing to do, but let's try to think of it holistically. Even if Mirror Force hits only a single monster, it's still a 1-for-1 trade. Not only does that mean that at bare minimum this is an even trade, it allows you to use it while you're ahead, should your opponent threaten to summon a big monster that can actually break your gigantic setup. So by putting a floor on the number of cards that this can hit, it prevents players who are ahead from using this to solidify their standing. There's also the fact that Mirror Force wouldn't be fully unlimited until late 2014. So we're talking about a decade plus of time where you might want to supplement the available number of Mirror Forces with some functionally weaker reprints to make up the difference. But therein lies the rub: weaker. The fact that you can only use this against a bigger group of enemies without any benefit for the restriction is just ass. But at least you don't have to run Critias and take up an extra deck slot to make it work, making it look radiant by comparison. Mirror Force Launcher is a continuous trap card that, once per turn during your main phase, you can discard a monster card to add a copy of Mirror Force from your deck or grave to your hand. And if the set card is destroyed by your opponent's card effect and sent to the grave, you can set this card from your grave and a Mirror Force from your hand, deck, or grave, and they can all be activated this turn. This is Revolver's mark on the Mirror Force legacy, essentially letting you trade in monsters to keep your opponent off the battle phase. And if they hit it before you get that online, you'll get the benefits even sooner. I really like this card as a concept, and the retaliation of destroying it while set is pretty cool. It's kind of reminiscent of Mirror Force Dragon if you squint hard enough, but once you have it deployed and it's out in the open, your opponent can knock it out without recourse. And it's super telegraphed, which is a problem when part of the strength of Mirror Force is its unpredictability. Without it, we've got ourselves a bit of a failure to launch. Dark Magic Mirror Force is a normal trap card that you can activate when an opponent's monster declares an attack, or an opponent's monster effect is activated that would destroy any number of monsters on the field while a monster that mentions Shining Sarcophagus is on the field. Destroy as many attack position monsters your opponent controls as possible. Then, if you control Dark Magician, inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each monster destroyed. Also, for the rest of the turn after this card resolves, the first time each monster you control that mentions Shining Sarcophagus would be destroyed by battle or card effect, it is not destroyed. Okay, so that is a mouthful and does seem pretty situational, but I'd argue that it's got more utility and usability than anything that's come before it on this list. It's searchable with the core card of the strategy, Shining Sarcophagus, as well as Gadget Trio. And notably, one of the key cards of the theme, Dark Magician, the Magician of Black Magic, has an effect that turns it into base Dark Magician while it's on the board, which gets you the big damage bonus. It wards off monster attacks and monster destroying monster effects, wipes out their attack position lineup, possibly burns the opponent, and then your on-theme monsters get an additional layer of protection afterwards. That's kinda nutty! If you could use this effect no matter what deck you were playing, I'd say this is the best one. But it is basically archetype locked, and the splashability of the card does factor into my rankings, so it's going right here, but should tell you now that we're at number 7, and we're seeing some pretty good stuff from here on out. And I'm not just talking about the cards, Dark Magician's new drip is off the hook. At number 6, we have Mirage Mirror Force, a normal trap card that you can activate when an opponent's monster declares an attack. You can special summon an illusion monster from your hand or graveyard, and if you do, return the attacking monster to the hand. And if any number of face-up illusion monsters you control leave the field by an opponent's card effect while this card is in your grave, except during the damage step, you can banish this card to special summon an illusion monster from your hand or graveyard. So, I know what you might be thinking. This card is not a Mirror Force. It triggers on attack declaration, sure, but where's the massive destruction of attack position monsters? And you're right. At best, we're only getting rid of a single monster, and it doesn't even destroy anything. So how can I put it this high up on the list? Well, I don't know. I mean, A, it says Mirror Force on the tin, and B, it supports an entire type of monster instead of just one archetype. And the fact that it has the ability to get back your monsters seems like pretty solid recovery to tack onto it. I don't know. What this card lacks in panache, it makes up for in utility, and I just think it's really neat because of it. Besides, it not destroying monsters doesn't make it less of a mirror force, it not destroying monsters makes it more of an illusion card, the most important quality any card can have. Number 5 is Blazing Mirror Force, a normal trap card that can be activated when an opponent's monster declares an attack. You destroy as many attack position monsters your opponent controls as possible, and if you do, take damage equal to half the combined original attack of those destroyed monsters. Then inflict damage to your opponent equal to the damage that you took. So now we're getting to the elemental mirror forces. Dark and Radiant might count as the dark and light elements, but they suck, so I don't care. Besides, these ones actually have flavor to them. Really leans into the attribute they're based on, and it's hard not to read burn damage as being very fire-coded. But how does it actually stack up to the competition? Well, it's as easy to use as regular Mirror Force, and could very well win you the game under the right circumstances. And it is a very anime card. Mirror Force in the show actually reflected some damage, which is a very rare ability on actual printed Mirror Force cards. Thank you again, Dark Magic Mirror Force. But the problem is that it's got the revised Ring of Destruction text. See, Yu-Gi-Oh! Used to have quite a few mirrored burn effects, but that ended up causing a lot of drawn games, which are very frustrating to most people involved. So to keep the spirit of the effect around, while avoiding a situation like that, they made it so first you take the damage from the card as the owner of the effect, then you deal that damage to the opponent in the sequence. That means it only wins you the game if you have enough life points to survive the initial blast, while your opponent doesn't have enough to deal with the blowback. So while it has the potential to win games while you're already ahead, it has just as much, if not more of a chance, to take you out of the game instead. And it's not like the damage is optional. And preventing damage is like one of the core reasons you play Mirror Force cards. For shame. At number 4, we have Mirror Force, a normal trap card that you can activate when an opponent's monster declares an attack to destroy all attack position monsters your opponent controls. The purest form of Mirror Force. It just does what it does, and it's great at doing it. But if so, how is this not at the tippy top of the list? Well, we're not exactly working with Plato's theory of forms here. We're not looking for the perfect Mirror Force, we're looking for the best Mirror Force. I mean, if we're looking for a trap card that triggers on an opponent's attack that destroys some number of attack position monsters, this one can't be beat. But as the game has evolved, more monsters have been made that either keep your opponent from responding to your attacks with cards like this, or just straight up can't be destroyed by card effects. So to deal with this modern age of monsters, we need Mirror Forces that evolve with the times. And let's just say, there's a reason the card is no longer on the Forbidden and Limited list. It may be at 3, but for this video, it doesn't make the top 3. Speaking of which, number 3, Drowning Mirror Force, a normal trap card that you can activate when your opponent makes a direct attack, shuffling all of your opponent's attack position monsters into the deck. Wow, that is brutal. Putting cards back into the deck is a surefire way to make sure you never have to see them again. And based on pure power, I think this one takes the cake. But sadly, we do have to talk about the restriction. See, aside from preventing you from taking damage from your opponent's attacks, Mirror Forces can also be used to protect your monsters. They're like Waboku cards, but spikier. Drowning Mirror Force in a vacuum cannot do this. You need a board devoid of monsters so your opponent can attack you directly, and for some decks, that's great if you're playing Chain Burn and looking to half-ass things, or if you're a Spellslinger brew like Runic. This card fits in perfectly. But for any actual monster-focused deck, this only kicks in when things are already at their worst, and presumably, you want to try and prevent that from happening in the first place. That being said, Drowning still does deal with many monsters that previous Mirror Forces wouldn't be able to touch, so even in the worst case scenarios, Drowning still beats out many others because of this. And I doubt our opponents are going to be happy having to wave goodbye to their precious monsters. Number 2 is Quaking Mirror Force, a normal trap card that you can activate when your opponent's monster declares an attack, changing all of your opponent's attack position monsters to face down defense position, and monsters changed to face down defense position by this effect cannot change their battle positions. This card is absolutely off the chain. Like with Drowning, we avoid many of the common protections afforded to modern monsters while still depriving them of their utility to our opponent. While face down they have no effects, they can't be used as material for common player action summons like Link or Xyz summons, and by taking up space on their field, they limit the ability for our opponent to utilize that space for more viable monsters. And with Quaking locking them face down, your opponent won't have a chance to change any of that. It's a pretty strong contender for the top spot, and during the first draft of this list, I put it at number 1. But there's a pretty glaring blind spot in Quaking's arsenal, and that is its utter inability to work against link monsters. As a rule, those types of monsters cannot be changed to defense position, whether it be face up or face down. During their initial release, link monsters were everywhere, but as we've moved on from that era, they've taken an equal seat at the table alongside the other extra deck types, which sounds like the kind of situation that would put Quaking at the top. But despite this, link monsters are still one of the most prevalent parts of any deck build because of their frightening ease of access and wide range of utility. Most decks can squirrel away at least one or two of them to help make certain plays, and some even act as game enders all their own. And Quaking can't deal with any of them. Even Drowning Mirror Force is more useful in dealing with them in that regard, but even in that sense, there's one more that surpasses it, and it rocks. The number 1 spot on this list goes to Storming Mirror Force, a normal trap card that can be activated when an opponent's monster declares an attack, returning all of your opponent's attack position monsters to the hand. There it is, as elegant a design as Mirror Force itself, with abundantly more useful removal tied to it. No unusual activation conditions, just you and the blustering winds seeking to wipe away the opposition. See, drowning, shuffling back your opponent's monsters is pretty devastating, but when you return extra deck monsters to the hand, it's basically doing the same thing. With Storming, you can ward off an attack from the game's most utilized mechanic while reaping the benefits of some spectacular removal. Now, granted, this doesn't hit everything. Monsters being returned to the extra deck just means they're ready to be deployed again should our opponent have the resources to do so, and we run the risk of putting powerful normal summons back into their hand to use again later. But every card is going to have its strengths and weaknesses, and in a game where most decks live or die based on the composition of their graveyard, being one of the few attack tricks that deny that to our opponent makes this one of the most powerful and useful mirror forces in the whole game. It truly takes my breath away. And that's the whole Mirror Force list, ranked here for your convenience. Don't worry about commenting this time, I'll save you the call to action. I know this list is objectively correct. Mirror Force has been such a fascinating part of the game's history, spawning spin-offs, upgrades, downgrades, and many iconic appearances. Turns out when you make a card that turns the tables on a duel all at once, you get pretty popular. So now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Do you have a favorite time you resolved Mirror Force and watched the blood drain from your opponent's face, realizing that all hope was lost? Do you have a Mirror Force concept that you've been dying to show off? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you haven't already, please be sure to like the video if you liked it, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, click on one of my videos in the sidebar to help me show up in your homepage, and be sure to share this video with somebody you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode is brought to you by Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales that even come with their own lore, and save 5% on your order by using the coupon code GoldenNova at checkout. It was also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commanders, Upstairs Media and Sir Knight JCB, Nebula Navigators 3rd Dynasty, 50 Gigabytes, Ada Basilisk, Adam Zajdel, Ancient Wizard, Andrew Newman, Battle Axe, Kane Senpai, Charlie Mercury, Chibi Gohan, Christopher Fuss, Clockswork, Comrade Copperbottom, Eric, Frankie, Garland Chaos, Green Knight, Great Big Pillock, Hair Bear, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Iron Zero, Iskander 711, Garp, Marion James E. Picata, Mike Cook, Millennia Asta, Muse Clark, Neon Yami Nair, Orozco 09096, Panther J, Bat Boos, Rank 10 Trains, Rebel King Lucifer, Red Eyes Jackalow, RJ the Jank Monarch, Sonic 21 Blast, The Critic of Innocence, Thievery Coast and the Wizard Moose, Cosmic Crusaders Ally Vatnia, Animasta, Anthorak, A Random Pup, Baden Von Titty Sprinkles, Beluga Masta, Blitzwolf, Chaz Ghost, Chibi Gohan, again, Christopher Fuss, again, Chris B, Cool Trainer Dark, Dante Lawson, Dr. Entity RIP, Eki Bullock, Eva Padilla, Herbal D, Kale the Dragon, Lobomaru02, Manga Pages, Martin Moore 2468, Natiel Lee Alexander, Nitromo, Not Al Gore, Nyx, Obsidian, Pombo, Rhyme Kairos, Shwenny, Shizuki Nijimura, Sophie, apparently, Sphilia, Stephen Williamson, The Legendary Raven, The Phantom Knights of Shitted Pants, The Queen of Time, The Gene, Tiger X2476, Tristan O'Meara, Zaldrucka and Zero De Nova, as well as the lovely Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, get my videos early, be a part of these credits and other awesome perks, it would mean the world to me if you would check out the link to my Patreon in the description or consider joining as a YouTube member. And if you'd like to see another series of trap cards, check out this video where I cover Paleozoics. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.